Hi, welcome to a special edition of Education Matters. This is a series on the NJSBA Special Report, Searching for the New Normal in Public Education. I'm really glad and honored that our first guest in this series is Dr. Lawrence Feinsod, the Executive Director of the New Jersey School Board Association. Well, I'm going to call him Larry. Welcome, Larry. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Ray. Good to be here.
Good to have you. So why did the NJSBA put out this report? Why did you decide that we needed to have this special report?
The report was prompted by our members' concerns about the challenges involved in restarting in-person instruction. Our intention is to promote public awareness of the many issues involved with the restart, if you will, of in-person education. And we also are using the information in order to engage state officials in the appropriate dialogue. And I might add, any school reopening plan has to reflect the perspective of boards of education, as well as other local school leaders, superintendents, principals, teachers, and so on. It also must provide sufficient flexibility to enable school districts to address their own circumstances and to address the needs of their particular student body. To develop the report, we interviewed district superintendents, we interviewed board members, we surveyed our membership, and we spent a lot of time reviewing published research. I believe that this report will make a very positive contribution to the statewide reopening of our schools. And I'm very pleased with the feedback that I have already received from the education community.
I think it's a great conversation starter. I read through it, obviously. But what, for our viewers, what are some of the challenges that you found?
Well, the issues involved in reopening schools, as you can imagine, range from measuring student progress and changing the curriculum, to meeting students' emotional and social needs, providing special education services. Additional serious challenges would involve social distancing and other preventative measures in the classroom, in the cafeteria, in the gymnasiums, and on school buses. The report explores these and many, many other issues, and it looks at the experience of a couple of nations in Europe, as well as certain states in the US that have already opened up their schools. But you know, the report does more than just raise issues. It's also designed to begin discussion on ways in which to meet these numerous challenges. The report also offers strategies for consideration by local districts and contains recommendations for action that the state can take and action that the federal government can take.
So we have all these challenges. Who's your audience? Who do you want to reach with this report?
Well, the audience is quite broad. It includes all of New Jersey's school board members, all of the superintendents and principals, all of the teachers, in fact, the entire education community, as well as the state's political leaders, and our most important partners, our parents. Parents are key stakeholders in the reopening of schools. They must have assurance that their children are entering a healthy and safe environment. And as you know, we have a terrific rapport with the state PTA, and we've engaged in a whole lot of dialogue with them as well. So that's a very important part of the entire complexity of this puzzle.
In the report, what are some of the major points that come across?
Well, those of you that have read the report, and if you haven't, please do, I think you'll be impressed about how deeply educators care about students' mental and emotional well-being during this pandemic. The logistical challenges of accommodating social distancing once schools do reopen, as I said earlier, that by itself can be mind-boggling. The need for accurate data, whether it involves health guidelines or funding, is obviously very critical. There's also general agreement that virtual instruction will continue to play an important role in education once the schools do open. School districts, with support from the state and federal government, must have plans in place and ensure that all students have access to technology. And I do want to give a tip of the hat to our board members, to the superintendents, to the teachers, and everyone else involved in what I call this miracle of almost overnight going from in-person instruction to distance learning. Our educators, and it's not perfect, but our educators have done an outstanding job in my opinion. And I might add, the report provides summaries of these, what I'll call valiant efforts by our local school leaders and educators. They have just done a yeoman's job. And I might add that, we've learned a lot from this experience that I think is going to serve us well as we move forward.
Yeah, I will concur. I don't think I've ever seen such cooperation among the educational groups from the local level to the state level as I have with this incident. We put out the report. I know I got positive feedback, but you alluded to this before. What has been the feedback that you've gotten?
I would say it's probably in the top 5%. In my 7.5 years as the executive director, this is in the top 3 to 5% of the most amount of positive feedback that we have ever received on anything we have done. And I mean, incredible amount of phone calls and emails and other types of pats on the back, little notes and letters and things like that. We have been extremely happy and if not elated with the positive sentiments that we've heard from people all over the education community and within it, and even those that are on the outside looking in. I even received a few phone calls from heads of local corporations and companies. So it's really been quite enormous. The report has also been praised and I'm happy to say, by our colleagues throughout the education community itself. I mean, we've heard from an incredible amount of educational leaders, school board members, of course, but superintendents and principals and supervisors, directors, state education officials. So many people have reached out to us, including some members of the legislature. And by the way, just a little trivia for you on this. We recently learned that a school district in Monmouth County has indicated that our report is required reading for the administrative staff there.
What's, we're all looking towards September, the reopening schools. What's NJSBA's role in helping the districts in that fashion? Well,
one of our most important roles, of course, is advocacy. NJSBA is represented in the State Department of Education's committees. We're also represented on the New Jersey Senate's project to address the reopening of schools. That's headed up by Senator Teresa Ruiz. And we're also bringing local boards' concerns and ideas to those forums, as well as to the elected officials and to the governor's office. In addition, we will continue our efforts to keep our members informed and connected during this public health emergency. NJSBA has successfully converted its training and information programming to an online basis. At the same time, we have not skipped a beat in providing our direct support services to our school districts as well. The pandemic and New Jersey's response to it and the status of school closings are consistently evolving. Most of us try our best to listen to the governor's briefings, and those briefings are very informative, and they too are evolving. So in many ways, our report is part of what is going on right now throughout the state. It's a work in progress, and we will continue to build on the report, and we'll continue to communicate as effectively as we can during the transition back to in-person instruction.
Okay, that brings us to the end of this episode of Education Matters, a special edition on the series, Searching for the New Normal in Public Education. I'd like to thank Dr. Lawrence Feinsod for being my guest on the show and really telling us the who, what, and where of NJSBA Special Report. Thanks, Larry.
And thank you, Ray.
And that brings us to the end of this program.